Weeks later, deep underground, in a covert facility unknown to the outside world, the harsh fluorescent lighting illuminated a sleek, metallic conference room filled with tension. Walter Pine sat rigidly in a high-backed chair, flanked by his team. Each face bore the quiet readiness of seasoned soldiers, eyes fixed ahead as Captain Taylor entered the room. Captain William Taylor, a man whose sharp features and piercing gaze had been etched by years of responsibility, stood with rigid authority. He placed a stack of folders onto the polished steel table, each stamped boldly with crimson lettering. Top secret, eyes only. "Gentlemen," Taylor began, his voice crisp and commanding, "we have a situation. Pass these down." The folders were passed around swiftly, the words, "Top secret, eyes only," bold and foreboding. Walter opened his, greeted by unsettling photographs, blood-soaked tents, camping gear torn and scattered violently. A sight of savage destruction. 3 campers found dead, Taylor announced grimly, his voice precise and controlled. Official report calls it a bear attack, but that's bullshit. My old CO from the 75th Ranger Regiment, Ranger Tom Cullen, thinks otherwise. "Bear attacks don't scatter gear like this," Carter interjected quietly, pushing up his glasses, his tone clinical and factual. "Bears certainly don't hang up your belongings in trees, and this level of destruction indicates aggression beyond typical wildlife patterns." Taylor nodded slowly. "Exactly. Cullen's instincts are rarely wrong. He reached out directly. He suspects something unnatural. Boys, we may possibly have a rake or werewolf on our hands. We're deploying immediately." The roar of the helicopter blades was deafening as the SRCU team soared into the Appalachian Mountains. Walter glanced at his teammates, illuminated by the dim red cabin light. Jose cracked jokes, keeping spirits up, his grin flashing in the low glow. Harold's boisterous laughter echoed loudly, earning a stern glare from Max, whose expression remained carved from stone. Ashley, their youngest and most relentlessly teased member due to his unfortunate name, bounced his knee nervously. "Bet you $20 it's a werewolf," he joked, masking his apprehension. Marcus, silent as always, simply adjusted his gear, eyes closed as if meditating. Brent fidgeted beside him, clearly nervous, checking his rifle repeatedly as if reassuring himself it still existed. Carter, spectacles reflecting the dull cabin lights, calmly recited potential encounter scenarios aloud, calculating and precise. Chris sat focused and prepared, eyes forward, betraying no hint of emotion. Jose nudged Harold with an elbow, chuckling softly. "Hey, big guy, you scared yet?" Harold grinned widely, feigning confidence. "Only scared of you slowing me down, man." The helicopter landed at dusk at the ranger base deep within the Appalachian Mountains. Ranger Tom Cullen waited, his weathered face lined from years of harsh elements and even harsher memories. Tattoos stretched along his forearms, remnants of his time as an army ranger etched in fading ink. "Glad you're here, Captain," Cullen greeted, his voice deep and gravelly with authority, despite his obvious unease. "Glad you called, Tom," Taylor said firmly, shaking hands. "Whatever this is," Cullen began quietly, his voice low and steady, "it ain't no bear. I've never seen anything like it." The team travelled swiftly through the dense forest, finally reaching the campsite. The air thickened ominously, heavy with decay and blood. The acrid metallic scent filled their nostrils, pungent enough to churn their stomachs. The campsite, was a wreckage. Tents shredded, equipment hurled violently about, and dark patches staining the ground. The team quickly started collecting samples. Carter called out, "Hey, I found some hair tufts," he said as he carefully picked up the hair with his extractors to place it into a collection vial. He took a sniff. "Oh man, what is this smell?" "Spread out, pairs of 2, Taylor ordered, voice firm yet calm. "Maintain comms. Report immediately upon contact." Pairs scattered into the gloom, stepping softly on the damp earth. Walter's breath quickened, scanning the shadows nervously. Ashley and Harold moved cautiously, joking softly, tension masked by bravado, until a guttural snarl echoed nearby, abruptly silencing their laughter. Jose and Marcus advanced quietly, the latter silently alert, fingers tense around his rifle. "You hear that?" Jose whispered, voice tight. Marcus nodded silently, weapon raised, eyes narrowing. Suddenly chaos erupted. Branches cracked violently. Shouts burst through comms, frantic and alarmed. Carter's scientific voice broke first, measured yet tinged with panic. Rapid movement, target evasive, unable to lock position. Gunshots echoed in disorienting bursts. Max and Jose stumbled, tumbling into the underbrush, harsh curses filling the air. "Damn, it's fast." Harold's voice boomed, followed by a grunt of pain. Ashley shouted, "Harold's down." It slashed his arm. "It's circling us." Walter's pulse spiked, adrenaline surging as a shadow blurred past his peripheral vision. He squeezed the trigger instinctively, bullets tearing uselessly through empty air. Time had passed, and Orith had forgotten about the foolish human he encountered in the woods. Humans were fleeting things, temporary, fragile, and largely unimportant in the grand weave of existence. They stumbled through their short lives, ignorant of the veiled horrors around them. It had been centuries since one could speak with him, and he was content to leave the anomaly behind. Until, one day, Orith, perched high among the trees weaving the veil, felt a sudden tingle ripple through him. He fluffed his feathers uneasily. Something draws near," he murmured. Suddenly gunshots shattered the quiet. Panicked screams erupted from below, chaos swiftly spreading through the forest. The noise surged closer. Launching from his perch, Orith took to the air, gliding in wide circles above the treetops. His amber eyes pierced the darkness below, settling upon men frantically running and shouting amidst the turmoil. He sees something familiar. The moron that almost got killed by a Wendigo. Orith swoops past the man. "Again, human, you test my patience." Suddenly he saw it, the creature. Orith watched with a mixture of dread and fascination as the beast exploded from the shadows. It was a humanoid dog-like beast, hulking, with powerful sinews rippling beneath matted, blood-soaked fur. Its eyes blazed a demonic crimson, and saliva dripped from elongated jaws filled with razor-sharp teeth. It moved on all fours, with shocking agility before lunging upright, slashing through the men with devastating precision. Each swipe of its massive, clawed hands was swift and lethal, tearing through armor and flesh effortlessly. The creature was a whirlwind of savage fury, its movements disturbingly fluid for something so large. Orith understood immediately that the human stood no chance against such a formidable predator. Decisively, his amber eyes glowed red. He folded his wings tight against his sleek body and dove downward, wind roaring in his ears. As he approached, Orith let out a piercing, echoing shriek, causing the creature to pause mid-attack, its ears twitching and head snapping upward. Using the distraction, Orith angled his descent sharply, talons extended. He raked the beast across the face, drawing blood and an agonized roar. Furious, the creature turned its full attention to Orith, swiping upward with deadly claws, nearly clipping Orith's wing. Orith skillfully twisted aside, soaring upwards briefly before diving again, drawing the enraged predator further away from the scattered survivors. The battle intensified beneath the pale moonlight, a deadly ballet between brute strength and aerial agility. Orith felt his muscles strain, wings aching as he repeatedly dodged lethal blows. The creature was relentless, driven by rage and bloodlust, leaping impossibly high, claws narrowly missing Orith's feathers with every leap. Spotting an opening, Orith feigned weakness, fluttering lower, baiting the creature closer to a towering oak tree. The creature lunged, convinced of victory, jaws gaping wide to claim its prey. Orith summoned a burst of strength, narrowly evading the attack, and instead drove the beast headlong into the unforgiving bark, stunning it momentarily. With fierce determination, Orith seized the advantage. He soared upward, gathered momentum, and dove straight down, talons piercing deeply into the beast's exposed throat. The creature roared and thrashed violently, but Orith held firm, driving his talons deeper until finally, with one final shuddering growl, the beast collapsed in defeat. Orith withdrew, breathing heavily, wings aching but victorious. The forest fell silent once again, the veil restored, yet the weight of the battle lingered heavily on Orith as he resumed his watch from the treetops. As suddenly as it began, the attack ended. The forest settled once more, silence enveloping them in oppressive weight. The team regrouped slowly, bewildered yet relieved. Taylor barked urgently, "Regroup and evac immediately." Only Walter stood frozen, heart pounding wildly, the memory of a familiar mocking voice ringing clearly in his ears. "Again, human. You test my patience." Walter's eyes widened, panic edging into his usually composed demeanor. His hand trembled slightly, glancing around nervously. Was he losing his mind? PTSD, perhaps? The forest lay silent around them, untouched, as if nothing had happened. Yet, Walter knew better. He had seen the crow, had heard its ancient, irritated voice. He wasn't losing his mind, although sanity had lost all meaning weeks ago. The thought struck him again. This job is beyond belief. He never imagined he'd become part of a covert unit, tasked with capturing and containing creatures meant only to exist in nightmares. The team regrouped slowly, shaken but alive. Taylor's voice cut sharply through Walter's haze, pulling him back to the present. "Let's move out. Whatever that was, it's gone now. For tonight." Walter nodded stiffly, swallowing hard. But as the team retreated from the forest, he couldn't shake the growing certainty that something, or someone, far beyond their understanding, was watching closely. From the darkness, from the shadows. And Orith, quietly returning to his weaving, cast one last disdainful glance toward the fading silhouettes, irritation tempered by grudging curiosity. Foolish creatures, always needing saving. Yet deep within him stirred an unfamiliar feeling, a reluctant curiosity for the human who could hear his voice, and perhaps something dangerously close to concern. As the helicopter touched down and the rotors slowed, silence fell heavily over the SRCU team, broken only by muffled curses and groans as they disembarked stiffly. The harsh glow of the facility's underground lights greeted them, as they moved swiftly into the briefing room. The air was cooler here, carrying the sterile scent of steel and antiseptic. Inside the dimly lit room, the team sank into their chairs, the weight of the night's events evident in their tense postures and weary expressions. Captain Taylor, standing at the head of the table, surveyed them closely, his sharp gaze assessing each man's condition silently. Jose was the first to speak, breaking the oppressive silence with forced humor. He pulled out a crumpled snack bar from his vest pocket, grinning weakly. Anyone else hungry after getting chased around by an angry dog? Harold chuckled, holding up his freshly bandaged arm. If that thing wanted a bite, it got one. Not exactly my idea of fun. Max merely shook his head, his stony expression unchanged, and leaned back with a quiet grunt. Marcus remained silent as always, calmly cleaning his weapon, movements precise and unhurried. Ashley nervously tapped his fingers on the table, attempting a laugh that faltered quickly. Did anyone get a solid visual on what attacked us? Damn thing moves like lightning. Brent nodded eagerly, eyes wide with lingering anxiety. Fast and vicious. Never seen anything move like that. Definitely wasn't any wildlife I've ever encountered. It was aggressive, Carter stated flatly, adjusting his glasses methodically. Excessively so. The tufts of hair we collected smelled foul, unlike anything native to this region. It's possible we're dealing with something previously unclassified. Walter sat quietly, barely listening. His eyes were fixed on the polished surface of the table, replaying the moment vividly in his mind. The blur of motion, the streaking shadow through the trees, and the unmistakable swoop of dark wings. He could still hear the irritated voice echoing clearly in his head, mocking him sharply. Again, human, you test my patience. He swallowed hard, feeling a sudden wave of anxiety. None of his teammates mentioned seeing the crow. Had they truly missed it, or was he losing his mind? Captain Taylor cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. We'll analyze the samples and try to identify exactly what we're up against. For now, let's rest and regroup, report to medical if needed. The men murmured their agreement, chairs scraping softly as they stood to disperse. Jose grabbed a cold drink from a small fridge in the corner, cracking it open loudly and taking a swig, attempting to lighten the mood. Brent poured coffee, his hands still slightly trembling, while Harold stretched out his injured arm with a wince. Walter hesitated, then finally asked quietly, "Nobody saw anything unusual?" Max raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Aside from a murderous forest creature, Jose chuckled dryly. "Yeah, wasn't that enough for you, Pine?" Walter forced a weak laugh, dismissing it quickly. "Yeah, guess that's enough excitement for one night." As the team slowly dispersed, Walter remained seated, heart still racing. He glanced around, the laughter and casual banter fading into background noise. Only he knew they'd been saved by something. Someone. Far stranger than any creature they'd yet encountered. He closed his eyes briefly, fighting the creeping dread that perhaps his grip on reality was slipping. But deep down, Walter knew what he'd seen. And he knew that out there, hidden in the shadows, an ancient being was watching, and waiting, and waiting.